It is December 14th, 2022. I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. This information is intended for entertainment and educational purposes only. Today we'll be talking about what was stock symbol MMTLP and what has become or will become Bridge Hydrocarbons. These are shares that shareholders of stock symbol MMTLP will get. And let's just do some quick math, okay? So if you were a shareholder of stock symbol MMTLP, you will receive as a dividend a private company called Bridge Hydrocarbons. Okay, there were about 165 million shares of stock symbol MMTLP that were originally issued, which means that there are 165 million shares of stock of this private company called Bridge Hydrocarbons, which is being issued. One share of Bridge Hydrocarbons goes to each share of stock symbol MMTLP, which is a preferred share. Now, there are short sellers out there in the market who have short sold a stock symbol MMTLP. As a result, there are many phantom shares. Brokers are now on the hook to deliver a private company's shares to their shareholders, and that private company has a lot of value. Let me repeat, that private company has a lot of value. That private company is worth a hell of a lot more than $2.90, which is the last selling price of, which was the last sale price of stock symbol MMTLP. And short sellers, brokers need to deliver Bridge Hydrocarbon shares, and there are only 165 million shares that have been registered with the transfer agent, because only 165 million shares of stock symbol MMTLP was actually issued. Brokers need to resolve their problems with short sellers, but in either case, 165 million shares will be issued. Every shareholder of MMTLP is owed a share of Bridge Hydrocarbons. Okay? Demand this from your broker because you're owed it. If your broker says, well, I can't get it or something, it's like, go and get it. You've sold it to me. Okay? Or go and get it or buy back my share. And if you're going to buy back my share, you're going to pay the price I want, which is, in my case, $1,000 per share. But it might go up, and it will likely go up. Who knows? Anyway, here's why Bridge Hydrocarbons has value by itself, right? Let's propose a scenario. What if Bridge starts diluting its stock and pumping oil, right? How much would it be worth? Well, let me tell you. I made a spreadsheet up this morning, tweeted about it, but it's not necessarily intuitive to look at the spreadsheet, so I'm going to go over it with you and explain what it means. That's the purpose of this video. So let's say Bridge dilutes its shares and sells 150 million shares at $1,000 a share. Who is going to buy these shares at $1,000 a share, you ask? Brokers. Brokers will have to buy shares of Bridge Hydrocarbons if they expect to deliver shares to you, the previous shareholders of stock symbol MMTLP, and they will have to get the shares from somewhere. If you demand your shares, they will have to go to Bridge Hydrocarbons and beg them for shares, at which point Clifton Dubois, the CEO of Bridge Hydrocarbons, can say, well, if you really want shares, I can give you shares at a cost of $1,000 per share. Let's say that they are short. Let's say brokers are short something like 150 million shares, because let's say the short sellers have sold a ton of them. Brokers are short 150 million shares. Where are the brokers going to get this money from? Probably the short sellers. I don't care right now. The brokers owe these shares to shareholders of MMTLP. It's their choice if they want to go after the short sellers or not. I don't really care. Okay, but they have to get those shares of Bridge Hydrocarbons. Let's say that they pay $1,000 per share because Clifton Dubois of Bridge knows that they are desperate and need the shares. Okay, and he's a reasonable person like myself. Reasonable and willing to sell them the shares. Okay. So if he's willing to sell them the shares for $1,000, that means, and there's they are short 150 million shares, then 150 million shares get sold. That means that the this chart is too small to see, but Clifton Dubois and NextBridge Hydrocarbons will receive $150 billion of cash. Let me repeat that. NextBridge Hydrocarbons would have 150 billion barrels, $150 billion of cash. That is cash in the bank, which goes on their assets sheets. That means as a shareholder, your shareholder equity goes up significantly. I won't even talk about that. Not on this video, at least. There were 165 million shares. After dilution of 150 million shares, there will now be 315 million shares. Okay. 315 million shares now of NextBridge Hydrocarbons with $150 billion cash in the bank. Now, next step is to drill some wells so that we can pump some oil out of the ground. Let's say that we can drill 200 wells at a cost of $5 million each. 200 wells at a cost of $5 million each is about $1 billion. NextBridge Hydrocarbons has $150 billion. So they could spend $1 billion to do this. Okay? They could spend $1 billion to do this. Why would they do this? Because oil is $80 a barrel. The cost to pump the oil out of the ground is around $25 a barrel, let's just say. It could be anywhere from $20 a barrel to $35 a barrel. Let's just say it's $25 a barrel, just for the hell of it. That means that the gross revenue would be about $50 per barrel for each barrel of oil pumped out of the ground. $55 per barrel of gross revenue. Next, we're talking how much oil can we get out of the ground. Well, let's say that a well can pump about 1,500 barrels of oil per day out of the ground. Okay? 1,500 barrels of oil per day per well out of the ground. Okay, so for 200 wells, that's 300,000 barrels of oil per day being pumped out of the ground. Do that for 365 days, because that's how much, there's 365 days in a year. That means over the course of a year, we're talking about 109 million barrels of oil being pumped out of the ground. Okay. Now, NextBridge does not have 100% revenue does not have a 100% revenue interest in this, right? They, essentially University Lands and other players have some royalties that need to be paid. So as a result, NextBridge has a 49% revenue in this. So pre-tax, what NextBridge's cut is essentially $2.95 billion per year. Let me repeat that, $2.95 billion of pre-tax revenue per year. Now, when they have to pay taxes, the tax rate effectively works out to 29% based on franchise tax, mineral extraction tax, corporate tax. It's about 29%, okay? So how much revenue are we talking after taxes? We're talking after taxes a revenue of about $2.1 billion a year, okay? There are 315 million shares now because the shares have been diluted. Let's say that you have corporate expenses of $5 million a year or so. Who knows? Maybe you have 10 million. Who knows? It's not that much. Anyway, that means that the estimated dollars per share per year from pumping all this oil out of the ground is about $6.64 per year that you could potentially have from from pumping oil out of the ground, and that could be issued as a dividend to shareholders. If that's the case, right? Let's say that at that point, if you were to issue a dividend of $6.64 to shareholders, a lot of people think about dividends and dividend yields. If you say that that's a dividend yield of 5%, that implies a projected value per share of about $132, right? But remember, I said way back that there was something like also what was it, $150 billion cash in the bank. Well, NextBridge now, after they've drilled all these wells, they don't really need $150 billion of cash in the bank, so they can actually give that back to the shareholders as a possible one-time dividend. Subtract expenses. Let's say that they have additional miscellaneous expenses just to keep the company going of $100 million. That's $0.1 billion. Drilling the wells, we know, cost about $1 billion. That means that they would be returning back something like $148 billion to shareholders. And across 315 million shares, that's something like $472, and it was a one-time payment back to shareholders, special dividend, right? So you got a special dividend, you got an estimated shares, you got an estimated dividend per year from pumping oil out of the ground, and then you have a projected share price as a result of that dividend per year. That's all based upon $80 per barrel oil. Okay, $80 per barrel oil. JP Morgan, as we know, saw oil prices hitting $125 in 2022 and $150 per barrel in 2023. We know that oil hit $130 in 2022, so their projection was actually correct. Let's say their projection is correct for 2023. Let's see what happens. At a price of $125 per barrel, we're talking about a possible dividend to NextBridge shareholders, if they go through this process, of about $12.08, which implies a projected value per share of about $241. Okay, $241 per share projected value. If oil gets to $150 per barrel in 2023, as JP Morgan predicts, that means a projected dividend to NextBridge Hydrocarbons shareholders, if they go through all this process, of about $15 per year, right? That implies a projected shareholder value of $302, assuming a 5% dividend yield. However, let's note, NextBridge Hydrocarbons is going to be a private company. You will not be able to buy shares in the NextBridge Hydrocarbons necessarily unless someone who already owns the shares sells them. There's no way to get these shares on the market. How are you going to buy these shares? You got to know someone, So there's opportunity cost here as well too. There is the opportunity to be making something like $15.10 per share per year, right? Projectedly going forward for 25 years or more. That's a large amount of money. So that's a large opportunity cost, not to mention the fact that, the extra money that's being raised to take care of the short sellers, right? To take care of the short selling that happened meant that a lot of money is going to go back to shareholders in the form of a one-time dividend, okay? So NextBridge Hydrocarbons, I believe, has a lot of value. If people are talking about pumping oil, don't be afraid of it. It's a good thing. You will make a lot of money from doing that. So that's all I have to say, really. But let me end by saying I am not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. This information is intended for entertainment and educational purposes only. This is how this spreadsheet works. If you want further info on all of this stuff, check out my earlier videos. It's very early in the morning right now. I don't believe stock markets have opened yet, but there you go. That's my video about NextBridge Hydrocarbons. It is December 14th, 2022. And goodbye. Thank you.